There we go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to Data Platform Down Under for the month of October. It's been a little while since we had our last virtual session. Since then, we have had Data Saturday Brisbane, which took up a fair bit of time, and then we've just been trying to work out what we've been going to do with sessions for the remainder of the year. For today's session, we've got Gilbert joining us, talking to us about using AI skills to help answer a variety of questions in Microsoft Fabric. As I've mentioned, this is being recorded and will be made available on the Data Platform Down Under YouTube channel. If you don't already have that link, I will put it into the chat window where you can come along and not just rewatch this session, but also any other of the previous sessions that we have hosted over the last couple of years. So with that, I will hand over to Gilbert. If you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put them in the chat window. I will be monitoring the chat window for the session while Gilbert is delivering his session. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Gilbert.
Awesome. Thanks, Warwick. Let me just get this sharing going. Okay. Oh, give me 1 sec. Yeah. Just got to find the right screen. Just share. What's going on? Oh, I forgot to click the button. Okay. Welcome everybody. Thanks for attending my session today. This is the first time I am presenting this session, so hopefully there'll be no gremlins or anything. But as Warwick mentioned, if you have any questions, just please raise your hand or put them in the chat, and then every so often I'll have a look and answer them as best as I can. Okay, just quickly a little bit about myself. I'm a Fabric and Power BI data consultant at Formu. I've been working in the data BI space now for about almost 15 years. Been fortunate enough to be using Power BI and Fabric since they've started out. So it's been a great journey, and I'll keep on learning every day. There's always so much to learn. So there's my contact details if you ever wanted to contact me with any of these questions or anything else relating to Fabric and Power BI. Okay, so what I'm going to be going through today is what is a new thing known in Microsoft Fabric, which is an AR skill. So basically an AR skill, you know, we all hear about lots of AR things at the moment and that, but what I particularly like about this AR skill is that it actually works quite differently to the AR almost co-pilot kind of configuration. The difference here is that the AR skill can generate queries or T-SQL based queries based on specific tables and data that you apply to. So it does this by you typing a question, it finds that data, constructs a T-SQL pretty much statement, and then returns the results to you, and you can see what that is. And I'll be doing an end-to-end demo, so you will see this all happening. Not only, I mean, that is how it works, but you also get what they say, the configuration. So the configuration in the AR skill is similar in the way you almost think about Power BI reports. You first got to configure and build something before you can then use it, or other people can then use it. So the AR skill works in a similar way, where when you're configuring it, you've got to put in some tables, so a bit of business logic or additional logic, so that you can help it get to the right questions with the right answers as quickly as possible. A question that often will come up is, what is the difference between an AR skill and Copilot? So while the technology is AI technology behind, and they both use generative AI to reason over the data, they have some key differences. For example, you have the configuration, as I mentioned, with the AR skill. In order to get it to behave the way you want it to behave, you can provide it with instructions and examples that tune to your specific use cases. A Fabric Copilot doesn't offer this configuration flexibility. You basically can use Copilots, you can type in some things, and what you get is what you get. There's no ways, to do additional configuration or tweaking. And Copilot within Fabric, as an example, can be used to help generate, say, notebook code or data warehouse queries. While the AI skill operates independently, you can, they're looking of ways of taking this AI skill and putting it into more products and applications. And again, I'll show you an example, a very basic example towards the end, where you can take this AI skill and embed it in something else. So it doesn't necessarily have to just live within Microsoft Fabric. So then moving on to, there are some limitations. Obviously, this AI skill is in public preview. So, and over time, the limitations and additional features will be added over time. So some of the current limitations are that generative AI doesn't interpret the results of the executed T-SQL. It only generates that query. So it basically, what that means is that we'll run the query, return the results, but won't interpret the results and say, is it doing this or is it doing that? It'll just return the results that it thinks it is right. As with a lot of AI at the moment, it might not always return the correct answers. And I think I have in my example somewhere where it actually, where it doesn't give you the correct answer, which is part of the configuration where you can tweak it to do that. So, you should always test these AI skills to verify that the questions you're asking are giving the correct results. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to rely on those results and, they not 100% right. So, the more you can configure with examples and instructions, the better it will get. Currently, the AI skill will only work on T-SQL queries coming from the warehouses or the lakehouses within Fabric. And the AI skill currently generates read SQL queries. So what that means is it can read data through the SQL endpoint, but it cannot write or create or update. It's basically just always going to be reading that information. The AI skill also only has access to the data that you provided with. When I'm going through, you can select the table, so it'll only actually run on those tables that you select. So, you can make sure you're just giving it access to the data that you wanted to have access to. The AI skill has data access permissions that match the permissions granted to the questioner. So, for example, if it's published to different locations, those people can potentially also get access to that. You can't use the AI skill to access unstructured data sources, so things like PDFs or Excel files or documents, because it's running from the SQL endpoint. If you do have those PDF, text files, whatever, just use a notebook or Dataflow Gen to transform that information, get it into a table, and then you can then use the SQL endpoint to query that. So there is a workaround in terms of getting that unstructured data to then become structured. The AI skill also doesn't support a conversational interface. So what that means is if you ask, give me the top 10 customers, and then you say, so it'll return the top 10 customers, and then you say, oh, give me their addresses. It won't be able to say, oh, for these top 10 customers, here's their addresses. Each question is almost fully self-contained. So you'd have to write a top 10 customers with addresses as an example. It currently only works in English for the questions and the instructions. At the moment, you can't connect the AI skill to Copilot or Teams or other experiences outside of Fabric at the moment. You can't change the LLM or the large language model that it uses at the moment. As well as while these are limitations, I almost see them as the tips when you're trying to create and use this. The AI skill loses accuracy if you use non-descriptive column names. It also loses accuracy if you use large schemas with dozens of tables. So because you can pick what you want, you can almost create an AI skill, say for sales, or an AI skill for inventory, that type of thing. As well as the last limitation, obviously, because it's in a preview status, every so often things might not quite work as expected. So it's always just around just making sure that you're using it with that in mind. Okay, so moving on to the next slide is what are the requirements if you want to use and test this AR skill. So you need a paid F64 or higher fabric capacity. So again, because this is using AR, it's using the GPUs, so there is that current limitation of F64 or higher. So as in my example, it's currently running in the background on the F64, but I'll just start and pause it as it's needed. There also is the AR skill tenant switch to be enabled, which I'll show you, as well as the Copilot tenant switch. These need to be enabled in order to access this, because often you don't want everyone in the organization potentially to be able to do this and either take all your capacity units or are doing things that they might not be able to do. Cross geo sharing for AI is enabled if relevant. So sometimes from my understanding, some of the GPUs might sit in slightly different locations. So that's where the cross geo sharing comes about, because they've got to take it, say, from here in Australia. I'm pretty sure they got some here, but they might have to send it, say, to Singapore to run it and then send the results back. And as mentioned previously, need a warehouse or lake house in order to work with the data. And then my final slide that I have today is the demo that I'm going to go through. So here I'm just going to explain the sample data that I have, and then going to go through, create the AR skill, show you a sample query, show you how that works, provide some instructions, and I'll talk around that, then give some examples after providing the examples, how you publish and share this. And then I'll show you a very basic, I'll put in the optional AR skill. I was trying to get another application working through another guy that I know of, Sandeep, but I just couldn't get it to work. It's a bit beyond me, but I can show you a basic way in terms of how you can use the AR skill somewhere else, and there will definitely be ways to integrate that. And I guess just before I start, I actually have done this for one or two other customers, and they've really enjoyed it, because for me, when you're creating like reports of data, it's almost like you're creating reports that are typically visually based, that give a lot of useful information, but sometimes people need more granular information, like what did this particular customer do, or they might want to know things like how many new customers do I have, how many returning customers. And while that can be done in for instance Power BI, etc., the DAX in that is very resource intensive. It's quite slow, and it's not very often that they need those more niche queries. And what I've found with the AR skill is this can come in and help answer all those questions where people have been going, hey, I really, I just want to know I want to know new customers or returning customers that have spent more than $100 in the last 2 months. Those kind of things can be done, but I found when using the AR skill, you just literally can type it out, as I'll show a little later, and it'll just return you the result. And it's pretty quick. So it's really interesting to actually see that working. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And let me just go over here. Okay, let's just do that. So what I have over here is I'm just showing you, I've got this good old AdventureWorks. That's where I have got the information from. And if I now just go and show you just hide this. If I go into the lakehouse where the data is loaded, you can now see I've got some dimension tables over here, like dim account, customer, dates, employees, products, and then I've got some facts tables, so like my internet sales or my reseller sales that have been selling. So this is just a very simple AdventureWorks sales model that we have running here. I'm not going to worry about that for now. So the first thing we need to do is once we have the data that we need and we've got it in the tables and in the structure that we need, is to then go ahead and actually create the AR skill. So what I'm going to do is, oh yeah, sorry, before I go ahead, what I wanted to do is just go and show you, if I go in here and I just search for AI, oh, a lot of things with AI in here. You can see over here, this is the option here, under the Copilot and AI services that I was talking to have those tenant switches enabled. And obviously, as you can see, you can specify it for whole organization or a subset of the organization, depending on who should have access to see what. So just, yeah, so sometimes just make sure that that you have those tenant switches enabled, and they can definitely take up to 15 minutes, sometimes maybe a bit longer to be enabled. So just make sure you have that set up a while before. So just coming back here, if I just go to my workspace and I go to the licensing info, you can see over here I'm running a fabric capacity, and it's located in the same location where my fabric or Power BI tenant is located. So I'm going to click here on new items. I can either scroll through there, or I can just search for AR skill. So I'll say I want to create an AR skill, and what you'll notice is if I put in a space, it's not allowed to have any spaces. So I'll just put you under October and click create. So now what it's going to do is it's just loading that up, and it's now saying, okay, where do I want to connect? Which data do I want to connect to? So I'm just going to connect to my lake house that I showed you earlier with the fact internet sales. And now what you'll see on the left-hand side is the Explorer. It's got all these little tick boxes in terms of, okay, which items do you want to use to do this? So in this example, I'm going to say I want customer. I want to know the customers. I want to know the dates. I want to know the geography of the customers. I want to know the products and the product subcategories, potentially promotions, resellers, sales territory. And then what I want is I want the fact internet sales, and I want the fact reseller sales. So those are the tables that I'm going to select to run the AR skill against. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on get started. So let me just minimize that to make it look a bit better. So pretty much once you've done that, you can actually start and go and ask some questions. So what I'm going to do first over here, just to start off with, is I'm just going to say, what is the most sold product? So I'm going to click on that. So what it's now doing in the background is it's going through, it's looking at the tables that are there and the data, and it's going through and saying, okay, let me try and figure this out. And this does sometimes take a little while to get started. So what you can see over here is this is coming through, and it's giving me saying, okay, this is the product that is the most sold product, and this is the total quantity sold. And what it's actually doing over here is it's also giving the query that it created to run this this actual information. So what you'll see over here is that when I was talking about the most sold product, it's actually gone and looked at the quantity. But what I might have actually meant to say, when I think of most sold product, I want it in terms of value. I don't want the actual quantity. I want to know what that is. So what I can do is I can then change this by what I had over here is it's got these notes for my model. So what it is these notes will actually help when the AR skill is running to know what to change with regards to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste, actually I'll paste them in one by one, it might just be easier. can just explain. So, and the nice thing here is you can actually just put this in plain text. When, like here, I'm also saying whenever I ask about the most sold products or items, the metric of interest is sales revenue, not the order quantity. So if I had to take this again, just with that single one applied, and I run it again, what should now happen is it's going to look at the notes for the model and say, okay, don't look at the, as it did previously over here, the total quantity sold, give me the total sales amount. And so now it's actually saying, okay, the mountain black was the product, and obviously it's giving me quite a different number. So what you can then do is you can then I can add some more notes. For example, this next one says, always use the fact internet sales, only use the fact resale as it explicitly asked about in resales or when asked about total sales. I'm going to just paste a few more in here. The one that I want to highlight and helps a lot is, for example, for this one to say, use the dim date to extract specific time periods. For example, year, month, when performing time-based analysis. And I'll show you a little bit later how that works. And it's really handy not only to have the date table, but to specify this so that it can go and figure out those dates for you. So for instance, now what I can do is if I take this and I say, how many active customers do we have on the 1st of June? So I'm just giving it a date and saying, how many actual customers did I have? And let me scroll down over here. I did tweak this data to be more current, but now what you can see over here, it's actually gone through and it's actually, it's looked at the DIM customer and looked at the date first purchase, and it's actually put in that date for us. So, sometimes this can be that can be accurate if for instance the first customer has been updated, but I might want to know instead of how many customers, I could say potentially how many customer sports products on June 1st, 2013. So what you'll see over here is, again, if this has now come back and this looks a lot better, but I've had to structure the question quite differently. In terms of this, it's actually gone and looked on the fact internet sales. It's joined to the date table, found the order date key to the date key, and then done the distinct count. So this is a lot more accurate, but with the AR skill, it's also not going to be able to answer every single question. And sometimes what typically happens is that the some of the standard answers that business users might want to query, but you want to have it so that the AI skill can answer that, because sometimes there might be a bit of business logic that the AI skill isn't aware of. So what they've actually done is there's another option where you can actually write these custom queries with the questions, which you can then upload in here. So if you see over here where it says example SQL queries, what I'm going to do quickly is, because I just had to jump to another machine, let me just do this quickly, and let me just save this here. Down under SQL query. Oh, give me a sec. I'm in a rush, can't spell. Let's go back here. Jason. So effectively, if I just open this up just to explain, it's probably going to open up Visual Studio Code. Let me just do it this way. So effectively, what you can do is you can create a JSON file, which is a lot easier than trying to do it manually, which you can do in the interface. This is just a bulk way of doing the same thing, where pretty much what you have in the beginning is the question that you think the users might want to ask. For instance, how many active customers did we have? And then the next portion over here is the actual query that you want to be run when that question is asked. So as you can see over here, total sales amount by year, what those particular items are. So this becomes really handy when you need to apply a bit of business logic that you want the AI skill to answer, because it's not going to be able to answer all of those examples. So what you can then do is, when you come over here to the example queries, if I click on the add, you can add an example manually, but if you've got even 5 or 10 of these things, it can become quite time consuming to actually do that. So you have an option here, which is the import from JSON. So if I just go over here and I click on open, you'll now see that it's pretty much brought in the question and the query and brought that in. So I can actually, it says it's imported, so I can actually click on close. So as an example, if one of the queries that we put in, if I now come over here and I'll say, what is the average sales amount per order by territory? If I just do that, because this is part of the example queries, it will now then go through and actually run that query. So as you can see over here, it's brought this information through and brought that to us. One other thing to note is you can see over here, it's actually said there was an issue with one of the queries. So what I can do is I'll come back in here, and if I scroll down, you can see over here, it's actually complaining, saying, this couldn't be bound. So again, it's even checking the queries to make sure that it is going to do that. And, if it's not quite right, you can go in here and actually fix that up. And yeah, there is also a limit of 1,000 characters per SQL query, but that should typically be pretty good when working, when you create digital dimensions and fact tables. So what I also wanted to show, now that I've set it up, I've got all my notes for my model, I've got some example SQL queries. What I can then do is I can then do things like saying, what is my total sales for this year? So I'm not specifying that this year is 2014. If I have updated this data correctly, okay, so it didn't go, I was trying to update it to make it more current, but as you can see over here, the query is right in terms of saying, it's getting today's data and saying, give me the actual year for that. And it might actually be that. So what I can now do, for example, is I can actually, when I was working through this and testing it out, I was like, okay, actually, when was the last sell date that I had? Because that could be of interest too. So over here, I can then say, okay, the last sell date was from the fact internet sales was actually 2014. So now I know the context of when my last date is, I could then potentially work backwards. Obviously, in most systems, you've got data coming in all the time. And obviously, as soon as that data, if you're using Fabric and the data is coming in, streaming it throughout the day, you will be able to then get that data as soon as it's in the lakehouse tables and available. You will then be able to query it here, which is actually really handy. So one of the other examples that often become quite interesting for users, for example, is how many returning customers did we have that had sales of more than $100, it could be $10, etc. So this becomes really powerful when sometimes you just, sometimes you want to do analysis on it. Sometimes you might just need a number before going into a meeting. And as you can see over here, it's come through and it's actually written a query, where it's gone to the fact it's net sales. It said whether the sales amount is more than 100, and those customers had at least one order. So again, that's pretty quick. It hasn't taken that long to get that information going. Something else which is often handy, this is quite often in Power BI reports, but sometimes you might not bring all the data in due to size limitations or performance. So here you can see things like bringing in the number of cells, etc. So I'm just going to go through two more of these and then I'll answer the questions. So another interesting one is which customer had the highest sales. So here you might want to know who's the most valuable customer, for example. And as you can see over here, this has gone through and it's literally just found that out pretty quickly, given the customer name and the amount in terms of what they've done. And then the final question, just as an example, is like the top 5 reseller by sales. So as you can see over here again, because we had specified in the notes, only when you actually specify the reseller sales to use that. So as you can see over here again, it's quickly just brought up that information. It's very handy, and you get a lot of valuable information quite quickly. So are there? I see someone had their hand up. Yes, Darren. I don't know if you'd like to come off mute.
Yeah, I'll come off mute. That'll be easier. I hate typing.
Cool.
Hey, Gilbert. In the example SQL queries,
yep.
if you've specified a number, like you're saying, give me the top 5.
Yep.
Things. Who are the top 5 customers, right? By sales
yep.
amount.
Yep.
If the person says, give me the top 10, is it smart enough to go, oh, you want this, but you want 5 instead of 10, and I'll use this query? Or does it go back and generate its own query because that one says top 5 and you want top 10?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just try it out quickly. Shouldn't take too long. Yeah, and this is where and I could be totally wrong while this is running, in that it should know, oh, okay, like over here, okay, this has got the top 5, and it's accurate because I earlier on said, that is give me the top customer. So if I now say top 10, let's just see if I'm going to get the same. Yep. So it's basically,
does it give you the exact same query, or does it go off?
Yeah, so let's just I'll do this quickly. So that's the top 10 one. And here's the top 5 one. And those look identical to me.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's smart enough to move like a value to something.
Yeah.
Yep.
And things, so yeah, thanks. It is smart enough to do those kind of things, which I would hope it would be, because there is some type of large language model behind it, that is using it. So while it's not conversational, I think it should be able to take and go, oh, this is almost identical. Instead of 5, it's 10, and taking that through. Yeah. So and in terms of the other thing I find really interesting with this is you can, because you can use the date type of things, you can just say, because obviously I don't have the data isn't up to date. I thought I had updated it in the table, but obviously I didn't finish it. You could do things where you can say compare this year to last year, sales this year to last year, and it'll just give you both years, without you having to type it in or select a particular thing. So that's where, it also becomes really handy, because sometimes people just want these random date ranges, but without having to specify, when's the start, when's the end, for actually doing that. Okay, so now that I've tested this out, I'm happy with it. It's working. It's working for me. But now, what about other people? It's no good creating this, putting all this work together, but not being able to share it with other people in the organization. So the next thing to do is to actually publish it. So if I had to click on settings, just to show you, it's got a name, you can endorse it. And if I had to come here to publishing, currently it's saying it hasn't been published. We can't do anything yet. So there's the big publish button. So what I can do over here is you can give it a description for the end users, because potentially over time you might have a whole host of different AI skills. And while you've given it a name, quite often the description, just gives a bit more context into what this AI skill is doing. So I could say, details for customers, date, internet sales, reseller sales, something along these lines like that, and then click publish. So what you'll then see is that is published. So if I click on view in the publish details, now what I have is I have this URL to connect to the AR skill programmatically. So what I'll show over here is, let me just grab this little piece of code. Actually, sorry, let me copy this. Just paste it over here. So then what you can do, and this is something I was trying to get working earlier in an external application, but unfortunately didn't work quite as expected. But just to show you a way that it could work, if I just come over here and I just create a new notebook, and this is great. There's a clear, this was happening to me yesterday also, is it saying, oh, I need to upgrade to a trial to get the notebook running. But the funny thing is I'm not even running a trial capacity, it's a full capacity. So all that I did yesterday is I actually just would do this. So I just say upgrade, where it's actually just going to change it, and it lets me create a notebook, which is a little bit unusual at the best of time. But anyway, so let's just go AR skill demo showcase. Give it a name. Let me paste that in there. So now what it's saying over here is basically I just need to give it the URL of the AR skill that I just copied earlier. So I've just got that on the side here. Let me go through, paste that in there. And now if I run it, it should give me an error because I'm running on a trial capacity. Let's just see. As you can see over here, it's telling me. And what I've done, sorry, in line 19 over here, is that's the question that I want to ask, that I was asking before. So obviously this is, while this is done in a notebook, this is just quick and easy for me to show you this example, but you can then take this and embed this into another application where you authenticate, where a user gets authenticated, connects to the AR skill, and then can answer. And as you see over here, this is not going to work. So let me just quickly go back. I see the hand up. Let me just do this quickly, and let me just edit this back. What's going on here? Sorry, let me just refresh this because I think it is not quite right, and then I'll get to your question now. I've seen a bit of funny stuff happening today when I've been doing some work. Okay, there we go. Trial. Let's just point that back to the capacity and select the license. Hit apply. And then what I'm going to do, just going to let it load up. Just make sure. And let me just run it one more time. As you can see there, the error message wasn't great in terms of telling you actually running on a trial capacity. So this is now looking a bit better because it's actually running on the F64 compute, and it is busy thinking and running through that. I think it takes about 30 seconds or so before it actually gets there. So there we go. Finally, it's come back, and it's given a response to what is an example product. So for example, here if I just say, let's just try again, top 10 customers, and let's rerun that. And while that's running, there we go. That was a bit quicker this time. And as you can see now, it's returned that. But because you're using a notebook, you could then potentially take that output and do whatever you'd want with it. Yes, if you'd like to come off mute and ask a question.
Hi, Gilbert. Pretty good.
Hi.
Thanks. So far, it's been pretty good. A couple of questions I have got. One is
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it works pretty well with the structured data. Does it have any limitations in terms of file data or a streaming data set? I mean, can we apply the same thing on them?
Yeah.
I mean,
So my understanding is as soon as the data gets loaded into the lakehouse tables or the warehouse tables and it's available, the AR skill will be able to query that information because it's available across all the different workloads.
oh,
So
great.
it has to be in a lakehouse or warehouse table.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No worries. Cool. So yeah. So as you can see, there are ways to get this information. And then I wonder if I still have it open. I do. Let me just see. No, it wasn't in here. Yeah. So there are other ways to integrate with this information through other applications. So you can almost just present the users with an interface where they will just always, at the moment, you obviously got to authenticate. You want to make sure the users do have access to what they need access to. And then they could just start typing their questions. And as an example, they would get the results below. So the other improvements that they have made, if I just go back to the AR skill, is you now get this option over here, which there's almost like the current version and the published version. So that if you need to make changes or iterations and you want to improve it, etc., you now can actually switch between this when you have the permissions to edit the AR skill, so that you can almost have a working version that the end users don't yet see, enabling you to work through that. And as you can see over here, the other thing, I don't remember seeing this before, but you do have an option. So if I just go top 10 customers, let's just see, or let's just go sales by year. I'm not sure if this. Oh no, this is actually, this over here is to actually click on that. I think if you wanted to see if you wanted to preview the data of the table, for instance, if you wanted to make sure it was showing the same thing. So the last thing that I wanted to show today is also, obviously, once you've created this, you want to share this with other people in the organization, etc. So you do have the nice big green share button over here. And what you do over here is you've got some options where, like with a lot of the sharing capabilities within Power BI and Fabric, you can specify who, is it people within your organization, existing access, or specific people, and then additional permissions. Can they also share, can they view or edit, or can they just view? So the other thing based on that is what it's highlighting over here is it's basically saying the AR skill isn't the same as access to connected data sources. So what that means is the people you share the AR skill with will only get responses based on the data that they have permission to view, which is good because, for instance, you don't want someone to get access to an AR skill when they shouldn't be seeing the underlying data in, say, the lakehouse, or the warehouse. So when you're doing things potentially like row level security or column level security at a warehouse, and you're applying the AR skill on top of that, you're going to have the warehouse always make sure that they can only get access to the data that they need to have access to. So as over here, you could then say, okay, who I want to just give view details. And then over here, you have your multiple options, who you want to send this information to. You can copy the link by email or by Teams, and then that will go through, give them the link, and then they can come and log in and then start working with the AR skill. I think that one, yep. So here you can see once you've given permission. Also, if you just wanted to know who's got access or links, etc., you can go through, have a look at those permissions, and potentially change them by clicking through on under advanced, similar to Power BI and all the other ones where you can see who's got links or direct access. Then just change those particular permissions. And that is pretty much it in terms of an overview of the AR skill, how it all works, you know, how you can select it, you know, do the notes, the optimizations, etc. Are there any other questions? It went through a bit quicker than, a little bit quicker than what I had planned, but that's not a bad thing. No demos failing, which is good.
So, Gilbert, with the JSON file that you brought open earlier, which had like, here's my questions, yep, and then it was going and generating, or you've got the statements there. Did you generate those statements, or was that something that was pre-generated for you and you've just captured that to place into the JSON file? So like, if we go back in time, is this like you're really old? I'm showing my age, but yeah, DSS systems that, you know, we first thought about, and oh, here was the question, this is the response that you're getting it. Is that what this is sort of starting at, that this is a pre-canned question you think they may be wanting, and for that question, here is the statement which is going to run against your warehouse lakehouse? Or did you just purely create this for the demo to show this is what it does look like, and that you can just build it out over time?
Yeah, so it's to your second point, is you're actually handcrafting the SQL queries. And the reason for that is the reason they've almost put this in is because sometimes, you know, we've all come across businesses that have got this really creative or unusual business logic that unless you know how to join these tables, or sales doesn't mean sales, it means something else sometimes. By you handcrafting the query, you're allowing the question to get the right answer. So, you know, and again, sometimes the AR skill might get it just through the notes. You know, the notes might be good enough, but if you keep on trying to tweak the question and you're not getting the right answer that you know it is, the option with the example of the SQL queries is that you can then, you know, spend 5 or 10 minutes handcrafting that SQL, knowing, okay, when they ask this question, they are going to get the right answer.
And then, because you've brought it back here to the notes, are those notes created and stored like that in a JSON file, or are they stored in a model somewhere that is associated to what you've created? How does that fit together?
Yeah, so my understanding is the notes that almost just interprets each sentence that it has over here, and then just applies that to the questions that are being asked, almost like as synonyms. I would say in like you get in Power BI, where you're saying, you know, if it's this, use that kind of thing. And it almost just is, you know, I think they've also tried to make it a lot easier by using just plain English to do the notes, so it doesn't have to be, you know, it's just the way like we typically think you can put the notes in there, and it will then interpret that to return the right answer. And again, you know, you've always got to, like they say, test and but maybe just tweak it slightly to get the right thing that you need.
When you've created that JSON file and you're storing it, are there specific permissions that need to be granted to that folder or location to allow this to gain access to that JSON file?
Oh no, you're actually just you're actually uploading it into the Fabric or Power BI service over here. So I don't know why it's not something. It's kind of funny on my browser. Let me just try to refresh it. So the JSON file can literally live anywhere. It's you just upload. You're almost just uploading the JSON file into the AR skill effectively. Hopefully now it'll pop up. I don't know what. Oh, there we go. It's just busy thinking. Over here, it's actually just it's stored within the, say, the configuration of the AR skill, but it's not, the JSON file doesn't, the .json file doesn't live in the workspace, if that makes sense.
Yep. Sridhar, you have a question.
Yeah, I think it's a slight extension to question earlier was asked. So how intelligent is it? I mean, like, let's say now if we were to ask, instead of being the top 5 customers by top sales, who are the bottom 5 customers who have very less sales we need to focus on, or what is the lowest sale month, something like that. So is it intelligent enough to interpret that from the queries, or how's that?
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of these questions in the past, when I've been playing around with it, has actually been typically really good at figuring out, like a lot of these things. Obviously, I'm not sure if that's the right number, as an example, but it's mostly really accurate in terms of, like, what is the lowest sales month, or which reseller has sold the least. So we could almost go maybe something like which reseller has sold the least amount in, let's just go 2013. And sometimes, obviously, I come from a SQL background, so I often will look at the SQL and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Logically, I'm going, okay, it's doing the joins on the keys, on the dates, and it's got the right year. So, it looks like it. Yeah.
Great. One question is, I do assume that at some point there might be hallucinations as well. So is there any boundaries as such we can define as such, or or there are no hallucinations as such? I mean, it only interprets everything, and then only if it's not sure about the answer, it doesn't give an answer at all. Is there something like that?
Not that I'm aware of at the moment. The only thing I would imagine trying to do with boundaries in that is putting stuff into the notes for the model, to say, and see if that works. I personally haven't tried with boundaries, but yeah, it would definitely be something to try.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for the questions.
And any other questions while we've got the last couple of minutes with Gilbert online? Feel free to come off of mute, raise your hand, or put them in the chat window while you are thinking about that. A big thank you to Gilbert for giving up his time and taking us through AI skills in Microsoft Fabric. It's been very enlightening on what just is happening with AI across the data platform.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy at nothing broke, pretty much, besides my teams, but that's okay.
Yeah. So Gilbert, there was one question in the chat window. How do you train AI skill?
Well, you can't train it. I mean, the difference is here you can, as I explained in the beginning, you can configure it to say, for instance, use dim date as the date table. So the AI skill is a little bit different in that you can't quite train it, but you can configure it. So to me, the configuration is more like, you're saying use this table for dates, or when they talk about sales or total amounts, use this column. It's almost like more of a configuration, I would say, than actually training. That's almost the difference. Like the co-pilots and the like ChatGPT, and those are almost models that get trained through pushing through data. This is almost you just configuring, saying do it this way, to get the result.
Okay, so we've got another question from Joseph. Does it also have the ability to suggest dashboards, graphs to use?
No. So at the moment, all it does is it actually just brings back, like you see the query with the actual data. But what I have seen, and I'll post this on. I know it might not look the greatest, but this is the demo that I was trying to show from Sandeep. But if you see over here, I don't think I can make this bigger. But if you see over here where he's going through and he's putting in this AR skill, what he's done is he's now done it in a way that it will actually return those. And then what he's done over here, and through his application, he's actually taken those details and then displayed it through like a third party application of displaying the actual values that are resulting from the AR skill being returned. So I think that, as far as I know, that's the you almost got to use another application in order to get some visuals. And again, that might be, you know, if it's something that's of interest and valuable, is to go into the Fabric community and create or vote for an idea saying, hey, can we get visuals with this? And if there's enough votes in that, enough people ask for it, it's definitely something the Fabric team will look into.
Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Feel free to raise your hand, put them in the chat window. While you are thinking, as I did mention, a big thank you to Gilbert. As I mentioned at the start of the session, this session has been recorded and will be made available on the Data Platform Downunder YouTube channel. That link to the YouTube channel is in the chat window. So if you haven't already signed up to that channel, make sure that you get that link, sign up. You can come back and watch this session as well as any of the other sessions that we have got up on the YouTube channel. So with that, if there are no further questions, we'll finish a couple of minutes early. Everybody can have some time back in their day. But big thank you to everybody joining, and a special thanks to Gilbert for taking us through today's session. Thanks everybody.
Warwick. Thanks.
Thanks, Warwick. Thanks, Gilbert.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah. Bye.